Okay, so today we have the task of getting this plumbing pipe greenhouse ready. And a lot of people probably think we're in like the Amazon or something like that. It gets really cold here at night. And if you're growing tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, you need some type of protection for them here, especially at night. So the plan is to get this whole area cleaned up, weed-free. We're going to dig a massive trench in the middle, and we're going to fill it up with organic matter, so a great big piece of trench composting here. But first of all, what we do always is, I have one weed in here, this guy. It's not ready yet, but once these ripen, it has all these jumpers, and these jumpers are really prolific. So we're just in time to harvest this now. And what I do is, I basically skin it. I'm taking all this away. And I'm going to compost this. And that way we have a fresh start. The soil surface will be more or less weed-free. And that gives us a good advantage. We have so much chamomile, and it's good because it's a good green matter for us, a good cover crop. It grows incredibly well here. So try this out if you have a real thin layer of weeds and you have really good soil. This only works if you have great soil. Just skim it off. I'm really tired of seeing all these people promoting this layer of cardboard and no-till gardening. For me, it's very different. It's an energy equation. So if I dig a 3-foot hole here, fill it up with compost, mix it in with soil, I've charged that 3 feet with energy. If I put a piece of cardboard on top of here and put 6 inches of topsoil, I haven't charged my soil underneath. That is a 6-month plan or a 1-year plan. I'm more interested after a 5-year plan where I'm going deep and rich. And most people will promote something because it gets views on YouTube. My approach is different. I want to promote something that is true and real. And I think trench composting, or any type of composting that includes the original soil, is more valuable in many ways. If you can't weed your garden, then you haven't conditioned your soil well enough. Condition your soil so it's really easy to take out rocks and weed and everything else. If you do that correctly, it's not hard. And keeping on top of your soil is a lot easier when it's sandy, rich, and loose, and you can get at it and work at it. So consider your soil your best investment, and we're going to get started to dig here and get this all set up. So one of the objectives I always have is gaining soil. And we have no source of soil here, so we have to grow our soil, which sounds ridiculous, or compost our soil to get more and more volume. Okay, so I just imagine telling my grandfather to put cardboard on top of here and then put topsoil on top. He would absolutely freak out and tell me that I'm crazy. And I'll tell you a little story. So we went fishing, and my grandfather and me, we were both on our bicycles, and a big rabbit, a hare, came out into the middle of the road. He hit the hare, and he went head over with his bike and all his fishing equipment and ended up in the ditch. He got up, and his only concern was for that rabbit. He says, "Where's the rabbit? Where's the rabbit?" So the rabbit was knocked out a bit, so I got the rabbit. We got to the river. He cleaned the rabbit right there at the river and put the guts inside the river. And it was one of our best fishing days for eels, because the eels came for the intestines and the guts of the rabbit. So that's the type of guy he was. He would never, ever consider some idea, far-fetched idea like that, as acceptable. His garden was out of this world, exceptional, And these guys, they put in the work. They do the trench composting, they do the animal husbandry, so they have lots of compost. So if you put in the work, you charge your soil, then the results are going to be not only exceptional, but into the future. This is 5 years of energy here, so it makes a big difference. I made a video yesterday about adding sand to your soil, a coarse sand. And what's really interesting about it is that you can barely see it. It is like completely worked in amongst the organic matter. So what it really does is that sand, it makes it so easy for you to weed an area like this. So we completed the process of weeding everything. Now we're going to start with trench composting. We're going to dig a massive hole in the middle and we're going to fill it up with lots of compost. We have lots of leaves from the river. So the process we're trying to achieve is to get the energy below the root system, below the top of the soil. That's number one. Number two is we have such a shortage of soil here. We're trying our best to make more soil all the time. So by trench composting this and then filling it up, we're going to get maybe 10 extra wheelbarrows full of great topsoil that we possibly can use in other locations, because this is at least 3-4 feet of good soil underneath here. So if I dig a 3-foot hole here, fill it up with compost, mix it in with soil, I've charged that 3 feet with energy. If I put a piece of cardboard on top of here and put 6 inches of topsoil, I haven't charged my soil underneath. That is a 6-month plan or a 1-year plan. I'm more interested after a 5-year plan where I'm going deep and rich. And most people will promote something because it gets views on YouTube. My approach is different. I want to promote something that is true and real. So I want to show one more trick. Is we like to use pine needles in this mix after I'm going to cultivate it, because they have lots of vitamin C in them, and they also keep the insects away if they get that scent going into the soil itself. So what I do now is I spread a good layer of rotted compost on top, and I dig this in. And the main reason, like I said before, is I don't want that sandy soil to settle itself again. I want it to stay really separated. So I'm going to cultivate this whole bed, and then we're going to add the next materials. I think trench composting, or any type of composting that includes the original soil, is more valuable in many ways. If you can't weed your garden, then you haven't conditioned your soil well enough. Condition your soil so it's really easy to take out rocks and weed and everything else. If you do that correctly, it's not hard. And keeping on top of your soil is a lot easier when it's sandy, rich, and loose, and you can get at it and work at it. So consider your soil your best investment. And we have no source of soil here, so we have to grow our soil, which sounds ridiculous, or compost our soil to get more and more volume. So it's really interesting. We've gone down 1 foot, and we're encountering a good topsoil, but it's very sandy and tough. But it's not. It's never been loosened up. There's a river right here. So a lot of this material is from the river, from way back when. But this is kind of what you get. It's not a clay, it's more like a compacted sandy material with maybe a bit of clay in it. But once you break it up, it's great material to grow inside. But what's missing is organic matter. That's why we were doing this trench composting here, is to A, get a lot more soil, and B, to actually get some real organic matter in the bottom here, so that this has a 5-year lifespan. Yeah, so when I grab a piece like this, a piece that is kind of compacted. I want to do a hand test on it. I want to say to myself, okay, what's going on with this material? It's got good consistency, got a couple of rocks in it, but what's missing in this? What is missing? And for me, it's 100%. The consistency is good if it's cultivated, but what's really missing is organic matter, leaves, and something to decompose inside here, compost, horse manure. It's got the structure of great soil, but it's lacking the hand test. The hand test tells me that it's missing organic matter. So we're going to add organic matter to this to get this ready for the next 5 years. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so we've dug this all out. We have filter cloth here for the river not to take the soil away. There's another filter cloth here, so we're not going to dig this out. So we've gotten to the level of where I want to get to. So the last step is, what I do is I loosen this up. It's a bit gravelly. I'm going to take out all the rocks. And I want to give you a little bit of an update on this. So we've dug this all out. We didn't encounter a single worm. Like for Canada or northern United States, the ground is full of worms. There's not a single worm here. We found two grubs. So to me, that's an indication that this soil has no organic matter for them to eat. There's no energy in the soil. And by upgrading it with organic matter, we're doing this soil a great favor. I want you to consider your soil very similar to a battery. And what I mean by that, if you trickle charge your soil, it's going to have life into the future, into the next 5 years. You'll have this charge that's in the ground. And I guarantee you, we're going to add some worms here too, but I guarantee you if I dig this up in, let's say 2 or 3 years, there'll be hundreds of worms in here. That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about when you're talking about no-till gardening and that. No-till gardening works incredibly well when your soil is great. And a lot of these guys that are making these videos have great soil. And they're sort of kidding you because, they're expecting you for your suburban lot with its crappy topsoil the builder gave you to do as well as them. It doesn't work. So by conditioning this soil, we're giving it new life. We're giving worms food to eat, grubs food to eat, and the plants energy to grow inside of. So consider this trench composting an investment, and it is the best way for you to create yourself a 5-year plan. Yeah, so I want to show something before I continue. All I've done is I've fluffed up this dirt. And what's happened is, besides the big rocks that I'm getting out, this earth has raised itself by at least 6 inches. So what I've done is I've created a lot more soil just by fluffing it up. Now, if I left this to its own devices, it would compact back to exactly where it was before. So by adding this fluffy material, I don't allow the sand grains to organize themselves perfectly again. What happens is these pine needles and leaves and all these things, they don't allow the soil to establish itself in a really compacted flat matter again. So it really helps by A, when you're at your bottom of your trench compost, to fluff it up, and B, to add all kinds of organic matter so that the soil can't reorganize itself. That's a great way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to start ordering my first set of organic matter. Okay, so here's a little trick that I like to implement. So that little layer that I've created, I'm going to include these two materials. And by including these materials, I'm introducing organic matter into here. So we're going to do this with the entire bed. We're going to introduce more and more organic matter, and we're going to dig it in. Okay, so we're going to add more matter. So just getting a start here. So this bottom layer, we're loosening it up, and we're not allowing it to compact again by adding organic matter. Makes a huge difference when we do that. Yeah, so we've got this all mixed up. It's about 50 centimeters of everything mixed up with the original soil, which was really sandy. Now it can't lie itself down again. It can't have this compaction. So now what we're going to do is, before we do the next layers, is we're going to put the original soil on top, just enough of it. And the reason I like to do that is because it has different microorganisms in it compared to this compost that we put in. So I want the two of them to mix together and work together. Okay. So now I've got a nice little thin layer of soil on top, original soil. And I like to put, this is really good for me, is to put pine needles on top. It adds vitamin C, and it smells through the soil, and it keeps insects away because it's got such a strong pine needle scent. Yeah, so we've got our pine needles down, enough of them. My next step is to put green matter down. And I like that because this will attract different organisms when it's decomposing. It will be attracting completely different things that want to digest this green matter. So that's why I like to put it. So this is our last step. We put the green matter on top. Weeds, anything we can find, then the weeds are deep enough so they won't grow again. So the last step is we've mixed everything up. We've got 60 centimeters of depth of worked soil. It's not going to compact again. So the next step is horse and cow manure. And I like to use both because, again, they have different qualities. They digest the grasses very differently. So I'm going to put 2 of these containers in here. And I want to explain something that is more or less really important. And that is the leaching mechanism. And this leaching mechanism is as follows. So let's say, and the no-till gardeners and the cardboard guys aren't going to tell you this. So if I had this cardboard here, and I had the horse and cow manure on top of this, when this gets wet from rain or from watering, this energy that's in the cow manure won't go through this cardboard. It gets stuck. This is going to absorb the energy from the manure, is going to end up in the cardboard and not in the soil beneath. That's why it's really important to have this near the top, because what's going to happen is when this cow manure and horse manure get wet, it'll send energy down into this freshly cultivated soil. So by doing that, you're charging the soil deeper with the cow manure and horse manure. So that's a big advantage doing it this way, is having this on top. It'll filter through the entire area. So the only thing left to do now is to cover it with the soil that is beside it, because we're going to do the same trench composting here as well. And I like to do that with a pitchfork because it makes it nice and light. I'm going to cover everything. Again, look for stones. And this second row is going to be a lot easier because we don't have to remove any soil. Okay, I'm going to level this off and show you when it's finished. So we put the soil back, probably 12 inches of good soil, just needs to be mixed up. And we've got maybe 60 centimeters, 70 centimeters of charged soil. This will grow really well. Anything will grow in here. And that's what we got left over for soil, which is a lot of soil, which is fantastic. Okay, so that's how you trench compost and turn your garden bed into a charged battery full of energy.